The medical ship Pale Mercy was dying. Smoke filled the corridors. Red warning lights flashed in every room. The ship had been traveling through empty space when something went wrong with the engines. Nobody knew exactly what happened. One moment, everything was normal. The next moment, the ship was falling toward a small gray moon. Senior medic Aura held tight to the wall as the ship shook violently. She was a Valorian, a species known throughout the galaxy for their gentle nature and healing skills. Her skin was pale and slightly see-through, and it changed color based on her emotions. Right now, it was shifting between orange and gray. Orange for panic, gray for fear. "Everyone, hold on," she screamed. The crash was terrible. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The ship hit the surface of the moon and slid for almost a full minute before finally stopping. Then there was silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy and wrong. Aura opened her eyes. She was alive. Her body hurt in many places, but she was alive. "Report," she called out, her voice weak. "Is anyone hurt?" 3 voices answered her. Fennel, a male Valorian with 20 years of medical experience. Kessa, a female who specialized in treating alien species. And Dral, the youngest of them all, barely out of training. All 4 medics had survived, but they were not alone on the ship. The cargo hold was full of refugees. 47 beings from 3 different species, all fleeing a war that had destroyed their homes. They had been traveling to a safe world when the engines failed. Now they were stranded on a moon with no name, far from any help. Aura forced herself to stand. Her legs felt weak, but she had work to do. "Check the refugees," she ordered. "Find the wounded. We need to set up a treatment area." For the next 3 hours, the 4 Valorian medics worked without rest. The cargo hold became a hospital. Some refugees had broken bones. Others had deep cuts. A few were not breathing at all. The medics did everything they could, but they were running out of supplies. The ship's life support system was damaged. The air was getting thin. "We need help," Fennel said quietly. His skin had turned a dull gray color. "If rescue doesn't come soon, we will all die here." Aura knew he was right. She went to the communication room and tried to send a distress signal. The equipment was damaged, but she managed to get a weak signal out into space. She had no idea if anyone would hear it. Then she sat down and waited. She thought about her home world, about her family, about all the lives she had saved during her long career. She wondered if this gray moon would be where her story ended. 2 hours passed. Then 3. The air grew thinner. Some of the refugees started having trouble breathing. Drell, the young trainee, was crying silently in the corner. He was only 19 years old. This was supposed to be a simple mission. His first real assignment. Then the communication panel beeped. Aura jumped up so fast she almost fell. She ran to the panel and pressed the receive button. A voice came through the speaker. It was speaking Universal Standard, the common language of the galaxy. But the accent was strange, different. "Distress signal received," the voice said. "This is Corporal Park Taeho of United Earth Emergency Response. I am 1 hour away. How many survivors? What is your status?" Aura's blood went cold. United Earth. A human. Every child in the galaxy knew about humans. They were one of the youngest species to join the galactic community, but they had already built a terrible reputation. Their history was filled with war. They had killed each other for thousands of years. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities. Some species refused to even trade with them. And now one was coming here. Should we respond? Kessa asked. Her skin had gone completely gray. Aura didn't know what to do. They needed help, desperately. But a human? Could they trust a human? "We don't have a choice," she finally said. She pressed the transmit button. Corporal Taeho, we have 47 refugees and 4 medical staff. Many wounded. Life support failing. Please help us. Understood, the human voice replied. Hold on, I'm coming. The hour passed slowly. The Valorians used the time to prepare. They found their emergency weapons, small plasma pistols that none of them had ever fired before. They were healers, not fighters. But they had heard too many stories about humans. When the human shuttle landed outside, they watched through the damaged windows. A single figure stepped out. He was wearing a gray uniform with a red cross symbol on the chest. He walked toward the crashed ship with his hands held out to his sides, palms facing forward. Aura noticed that he moved slowly, carefully, like he was trying not to scare them. The airlock door opened. Cold air rushed in. And there he stood. The human was not as big as Aura had expected. He was about average height for his species, with black hair cut short and a face that looked tired but calm. His skin was a warm brown color, and his eyes were dark. He carried a large bag on his back and nothing in his hands. But still, every Valorian medic raised their weapon. Aura's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pistol. She saw Drell beside her, tears still wet on his face, pointing his weapon at the human with trembling arms. The human stopped walking. He looked at each of them slowly. He looked at their weapons. He looked at their gray, fear-colored skin. He looked at Drell's tears, and then he did something strange. He did nothing. He just stood there, waiting, watching them with those dark, calm eyes. Aura had expected him to attack, to shout, to threaten them. That's what the story said humans did, but this human just waited. And somehow, that was more frightening than anything else. Park Taeho had seen this before, not on alien faces. He had never met a Valorian until today. But fear was fear, no matter what species wore it. The gray color spreading across their skin. The shaking hands. The wide eyes that couldn't decide whether to look at him or look away. He had seen that same look on the faces of children trapped in buildings after earthquakes. He had seen it on refugees crossing dangerous borders with nothing but the clothes on their bodies. He had seen it on his little sister's face when they were young, hiding together in the closet while their father raged through the house. Fear was a universal language. And these 4 aliens were speaking it loudly. Taeho did not move. He kept his hands visible. He breathed slowly and evenly. He made himself as non-threatening as possible, which was not easy when you were a human and everyone in the galaxy thought your species was violent and dangerous. The youngest alien was crying. Taeho focused on him first. Young, scared, probably had never held a weapon before today. His arms were shaking so much that if he tried to fire, he would miss by a wide margin. But Taeho didn't want anyone firing anything. I know what this looks like, Taeho said softly. He spoke slowly and clearly. A human, alone, walking toward you in a place where you feel trapped. None of them responded. The oldest one, a female with silver markings on her face, seemed to be the leader. Her weapon was pointed at his chest. Her finger was on the trigger. But she hadn't fired yet. That was a good sign. I want you to know something, Taeho continued. I didn't bring any weapons. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I heard your distress call, and I came to help. That's all. Why should we believe you? The leader asked. Her voice was tight with fear. You're human. Taeho nodded slowly. Yes, I am human. And I know what humans have done. We have a bloody history. We killed each other for centuries. We still do sometimes. The stories you've heard about us are probably true. He paused. Then he did something that made all 4 aliens gasp. He slowly lowered himself to one knee. He was now smaller than them, less threatening, more vulnerable. But I'm not here to fight, he said. I'm a medic. Same as you. I spent 15 years learning how to save lives, not take them. And right now, you have wounded people who need help. So please, let me do my job. He reached into his bag very slowly. Every alien tightened their grip on their weapons. Tejo pulled out a medical kit and placed it on the ground in front of him. This is all I have, he said. Medicine, bandages, surgical tools. Nothing that can hurt you. The silence stretched for a long time. Tejo could hear the damaged ship groaning around them. He could smell smoke and blood. Somewhere deeper in the ship, someone was crying in pain. The leader stared at him. Her skin was still gray with fear, but Tejo thought he saw small patches of amber appearing. Amber might mean uncertainty, or maybe curiosity. He didn't know Valorian color codes well. Aura, the male beside her, said quietly, "We need help. Look at him. He's not attacking. He's just waiting." The one called Aura didn't respond. She was studying Tejo's face with intense concentration, looking for lies, looking for hidden threats, looking for some sign of the monster she had been taught to fear. Tejo let her look. He had nothing to hide. "My name is Park Tejo," he said. "I'm 34 years old. I grew up in a small city on Earth called Bizan. I have a younger sister named Sumin, who I haven't seen in 3 years because I've been stationed in deep space. I became a medic because..." He stopped, swallowed. "Because when I was young, I learned what it felt like to be scared. And I decided I wanted to spend my life making people feel safe instead." The young one lowered his weapon first. His arms had gotten too tired to hold it up. Tears were still falling down his face. "Drell," Aura said sharply. "Keep your weapon raised." "I can't," Drell whispered. "I can't do this. Look at him. He's on his knees. He has no weapons. He came alone to help us. What kind of monster is that?" Tejo looked at the young alien. "What's your name?" "Drow," the young one answered, ignoring the sharp look from his leader. "I'm a trainee. This is my first real mission." "That's a hard first mission," Tejo said gently. "Crash landing on a strange moon. Lots of wounded. Running out of air. That would scare anyone." "I'm not scared of the crash," Drow said. "I'm scared of you." The words hung in the air. Honest, raw, painful. Tejo nodded slowly. "I know, and I understand. I'm sorry my species has given you reasons to be afraid. But I promise you, Drell, I am not here to hurt anyone. I just want to help." Another long silence. Then Aura lowered her weapon. Her skin had changed. Still mostly gray, but now mixed with a soft amber color. Caution, uncertainty, but not pure fear anymore. "If you try anything," she said, "we will defend ourselves." "I would expect nothing less," Tejo replied. He stood up slowly, keeping his movements smooth and predictable. "How many wounded do you have?" 47 refugees. At least 30 with serious injuries. We've lost 5 already." Aura's voice cracked slightly. "We're running out of supplies. The air filtration system is failing. We don't have much time." Tejo picked up his medical kit. "Then let's not waste any more of it. Show me where you need me." Aura hesitated for one more moment. Then she turned and walked toward the cargo hold. The other medics followed her. Tejo walked behind them, careful to keep his distance, careful not to make any sudden moves. As they walked through the damaged corridors, Drell fell into step beside him. "Why did you come alone?" the young Valorian asked. "If you knew we would be scared of you, why not send someone else? Why not wait for a different ship?" Tejo thought about the question. "Because I was the closest. Because every minute mattered. Because those refugees needed help now, not later. But we could have killed you." "Yes," Tejo admitted. You could have. But I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've learned to read people, to see past the fear. He glanced at Drell. I saw your face when I walked in. You were terrified, but you were also sad. You didn't want to hurt me. You just wanted everything to be okay. Drell was quiet for a moment. How did you know that? Taeho thought of his sister again. Of all those nights hiding from their father. Of the fear that never fully went away. Because I've worn that face too, he said. A long time ago. They reached the cargo hold. The sight before them was terrible. Bodies everywhere. Some moving. Some still. Blood of different colors stained the floor. The sound of crying and moaning filled the air. Taeho took a deep breath. Then he opened his medical kit and got to work. The next 14 hours were the longest of Aura's life. She had worked as a medic for over 30 years. She had seen terrible things. She had saved thousands of lives. But nothing had prepared her for this. 47 patients. Limited supplies. Failing life support. And a human working beside her. That last part was the strangest thing of all. Corporal Park Taeho worked without rest. He moved from patient to patient with calm efficiency. His hands were steady. His voice was gentle. He seemed to know exactly what each species needed, even species that Aura knew were rare in human space. How do you know Gorvish anatomy? Fennel asked him during the third hour. Taeho was treating a large reptilian male whose arm had been crushed in the crash. I studied it, Taeho replied, not looking up from his work. When I joined the Emergency Response Division, they trained us on 40 different species. Basic biology, common injuries, medicine interactions. He finished wrapping the Gorvish's arm and gave the patient a small smile. You'll be okay. The bone is set. Try not to move it for a few hours. The Gorvish looked at Taeho with wide, fearful eyes. Like everyone else on the ship, he had heard stories about humans. But he nodded slowly and said something in his own language that Taeho's translator turned into a simple thank you. Aura watched this exchange with growing confusion. This was not what she had expected. Not at all. The hours passed. The work continued. During the 6th hour, there was an emergency. A pregnant female of the Melleran species went into early labor. The crash had caused complications. The baby was stuck. Without surgery, both mother and child would die. I can do it, Kessa said, but her hands were shaking. Mellerans had thick skin and dense muscle tissue. The incisions required would need significant force. The Lorian hands were not built for such work. Taeho looked at the situation. Then he looked at Kessa. I can make the cuts, he said quietly. If you guide me. I don't know Melleran reproduction systems well enough. Kessa hesitated. The idea of letting a human operate on one of her patients went against every instinct she had. Kessa, Aura said. We don't have time. Kessa nodded slowly. Okay, I'll guide you. The surgery took 2 hours. Kessa spoke constantly, telling Taeho exactly where to cut, how deep to go, when to stop. Taeho followed her instructions perfectly. His hands were strong and precise. He never flinched, even when blood covered his arms up to the elbows. The baby was born crying. A healthy sound. A beautiful sound. The mother reached out and grabbed Taeho's hand. She was weak from blood loss, but her grip was strong. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, human. Taeho nodded. You did the hard part. Rest now. Aura saw something change in Kessa's face after that. The gray fear color was fading. Something warmer was taking its place. Respect, maybe. Or gratitude. Or simply the recognition that she had been wrong about something important. The work continued. During the 9th hour, 3 patients died. There was nothing anyone could do. Their injuries were too severe, and the supplies were gone. Taeho closed their eyes gently and covered their bodies with clean sheets. "I'll move them," he said quietly. "There's a storage room at the end of the corridor. The others shouldn't have to see this." "I'll help," Drell said. Together, the human and the young Valorian carried 3 bodies to the storage room. Aura watched them go. When they came back, Drell's eyes were red from crying, but he looked stronger somehow, more sure of himself. "He said a prayer," Drell told Aura later, when Taeho was busy with another patient. "A human prayer. He said it was for their journey to whatever comes next. He didn't even know what species they were, but he still prayed for them." Aura didn't know what to say to that dot during the 12th hour. Taeho finally sat down. His face was pale with exhaustion. His hands, which had been so steady all day, were starting to shake. "You should rest," Aura told him. "You've been working for 12 hours without stopping." "So have you," Taeho replied. He accepted a water pack from Drell and drank it slowly. "How are you holding up?" The question surprised Aura. No one had asked her that since the crash. She was the senior medic. She was supposed to be strong for everyone else. She wasn't supposed to need comfort. "I'm fine," she said automatically. Taeho looked at her for a long moment. His dark eyes seemed to see right through her lie. "No, you're not," he said softly. "And that's okay. This situation is terrible. It would be strange if you were fine." Aura felt something break inside her chest. The wall she had built to hold back her emotions. Before she knew what was happening, tears were running down her face. Her skin shifted to deep blue, the Valorian color of sorrow. Taeho didn't say anything. He didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He just sat there beside her, sharing the silence, letting her feel what she needed to feel. "I thought we were going to die," Aura whispered. "When the ship crashed, when the air started running out, I thought this was the end." "But it wasn't," Taeho said. "You're still here. Your team is still here. And most of your patients are going to survive because of what you did." "What we did," Aura corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." Taeho shrugged. "You would have found a way. Medics always do." Aura wiped her face. Her skin was slowly shifting back to its normal color. "I owe you an apology," she said. "When you first arrived, I was ready to shoot you. I was so scared. I believed all the terrible stories about humans." "The stories aren't entirely wrong," Taeho said. "Humans have done terrible things. We still do. But we've also learned from our history. Some of us, anyway." He smiled slightly. "Every species has good and bad individuals. Humans are no different." "You're different from what I expected," Aura admitted. "Most people are, if you give them a chance." The conversation was interrupted by a shout from across the cargo hold. Fennel was calling for help with a difficult patient. Taeho stood up immediately, all signs of exhaustion gone from his face. "Back to work," he said. "We're almost there. Just a few more hours." Aura watched him walk away. 14 hours ago, she had been ready to kill this man. Now, she wasn't sure what she felt. Gratitude, respect, confusion, maybe even something like friendship. The galaxy was a strange place, she thought. And she was starting to realize that she understood far less of it than she had believed. The rescue fleet arrived on hour 16. Aura heard the ships before she saw them. The deep rumble of engines cutting through the thin atmosphere. The whine of landing gear extending. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. Help had finally come, but when she looked out the damaged window, her relief turned to concern. These were not civilian rescue ships. They were military vessels. Galactic Union warships with heavy weapons and armored hulls. The symbol on their sides was familiar to everyone in the galaxy. It was the mark of the Union Patrol, a military force that maintained order across known space. Why would the military respond to a medical distress call? Fennel asked nervously. Aura didn't know, but she had a bad feeling about this. The airlock opened, and soldiers marched in. They wore full combat armor and carried plasma rifles. At their head was a tall figure with a hard shell covering his body and cold, dark eyes. Commander Voss. Aura recognized his species. He was a Therian, from a warrior culture that valued strength and order above all else. Voss scanned the room quickly. His eyes passed over the wounded refugees, the exhausted Valorian medics, and then stopped. On Teho. Human, Voss said, his voice flat and dangerous. He drew his weapon and pointed it at Teho's chest. Step away from the Union citizens, now. Teho had been kneeling beside a patient, checking their bandages. He looked up at Voss calmly. Slowly, he raised his hands and stood. Commander, Teho said in a steady voice. I'm a medic with the United Earth Emergency Response Division. I responded to this ship's distress call. Humans are not authorized in this sector, Voss replied. You are in violation of territorial boundaries. You will be detained, and your ship will be seized. Aura felt anger rising in her chest. This was wrong. Completely wrong. Commander Voss, she said, stepping forward. This man saved lives. He has been working beside us for 16 hours. Silence, Voss commanded. His cold eyes never left Teho. This is a military matter. The human will be processed according to Union law. Teho didn't move. His face remained calm, but Aura could see tension in his shoulders. She knew he was trained for combat. She had seen hints of it in the way he moved, the way he assessed threats, the way he positioned himself in rooms. If he wanted to fight, he probably could, but he didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't make any aggressive moves. He just stood there with his hands raised, waiting. Commander, Teho said quietly, I understand your concerns. Humans have not always been good neighbors. Our reputation is complicated, but I came here to help. That's all. These people were dying, and I had the skills to save them. That's not my concern, Voss said. My concern is the law, and the law says you don't belong here. Something shifted in the room. Aura felt it before she saw it. A change in the air. A hardening of resolve. Drell stepped forward, the young Valorian trainee, who had been crying with fear just 16 hours ago, walked across the room and stood between Teho and Commander Voss. Drell, Aura whispered. What are you doing? This man saved 17 lives, Drell said. His voice was shaking, but it was also firm. He worked without rest. He carried our dead with respect. He prayed for strangers he had never met. He is not a threat. He is a healer. Voss looked at Drell like he was an insect. Step aside, Valorian. This doesn't concern you. It does concern me, Drell replied. He helped us. He helped all of us. And I won't let you take him like a criminal. Fennel moved next. He walked across the room and stood beside Drell. His skin had turned a deep blue color that Aura had never seen on him before. Determination, courage, defiance. The young one is right, Fennel said. We owe this human our lives. Many of these refugees owe him their lives. Taking him as a prisoner would be a dishonor to everything he has done. Kessa joined them. Then, after a moment of hesitation, Aura did too. 4 Valorian medics stood in a line between the human and the Therian commander. Their skin was all the same deep blue color now. United. Resolved. Voss stared at them. His face was hard to read, but Aura thought she saw something flicker in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or confusion. In Therian culture, unity was sacred. When individuals stood together, it meant something. To harm those who stood in unity was considered deeply dishonorable. It was one of the oldest laws of their people. You would protect this human? Voss asked slowly. You would stand against the Union military for him? We stand for what is right, Aura replied. This man came alone to save strangers. He asked for nothing in return. He showed us kindness when he had every reason to expect hostility. If that makes him a criminal in your eyes, then your laws are broken. The silence stretched for a long, tense moment. The soldiers behind Voss shifted nervously. They had expected a simple retrieval mission. They had not expected resistance from a group of medics. Finally, Voss lowered his weapon. This will be reported, he said. His voice was cold, but some of the aggression had left it. The human's presence here and your defense of him will be documented and sent to Union Command. Then reported, Aura said. She was surprised by the strength in her own voice. Report that a human came alone to help strangers. Report that he worked for 16 hours without rest to save lives. Report that he treated every patient, regardless of species, with skill and compassion. She turned and looked at Taeho. He was still standing with his hands raised, but there was something new in his dark eyes. Something that looked almost like emotion. Report that he recognized our fear and answered it with patience, Aura continued. Report that he knew what fear looked like, and he chose kindness anyway. Report all of that, Commander. Let the Union decide what to do with such a man. Voss was silent for a long moment. Then he holstered his weapon and turned to his soldiers. Secure the area, he ordered. Begin evacuation of the refugees. Medical priority first. He looked back at Aura. The human will not be detained. For now. But this matter is not closed. As the soldiers moved to help with the evacuation, Taeho finally lowered his hands. He looked at Aura and the other Valorians who had protected him. His face was calm, but his voice was thick when he spoke. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. You could have let him take me. It would have been easier. Aura shook her head. No, it wouldn't have been easier. It would have been wrong. Drell smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Besides, the young medic said, we still have patients to treat. We need you here. Taeho looked at each of them in turn. Then slowly he smiled too. Then let's finish the job, he said. Together. 3 months passed. The story of the crashed medical ship spread across the galaxy like fire. News networks on 100 worlds reported on the Valorian medics who had survived against impossible odds. They reported on the 42 refugees who were saved from certain death. And they reported on the human who had come alone to help strangers. At first, the reports were skeptical. A human acting as a hero? A human showing compassion to alien species? It didn't match the stories everyone had grown up hearing. Some networks suggested it was propaganda. Others claimed the Valorians had been forced to lie. But then the videos emerged. Security footage from the crashed ship. Drell had been recording everything on his personal device without realizing it. The footage showed Taeho working, treating patients, carrying bodies, praying over the dead. And most importantly, it showed the moment when he first entered the ship. It showed a human with no weapons, falling to one knee in front of 4 terrified aliens, placing his medical kit on the ground, and asking for permission to help. The galaxy watched that video millions of times. Now, 3 months later, Corporal Park Taeho stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Union Medical Council. The room was enormous, built to hold representatives from hundreds of species. Today, 47 different species had sent delegates. Most of them had never seen a human in person before. Taeho wore his formal United Earth uniform. It was dark blue with gold trim and the red medical cross on his chest. He stood alone in the center of the room, feeling very small. Corporal Park Taeho, the head of the council, announced. She was an ancient Valorian with deep purple skin and kind eyes. You have been nominated for the Pale Mercy Commendation, the highest honor our council can give. This award recognizes extraordinary service in the preservation of life and conduct that represents the finest ideals of the medical profession. Taeho said nothing. He wasn't sure his voice would work if he tried. The nomination was submitted by Senior Medic Aura of the medical ship Pale Mercy. The council head continued. She and her colleagues have provided extensive testimony about your actions during the crisis. The council has reviewed all evidence and has made its decision. She paused. The room was completely silent. Corporal Taeho, your actions saved 32 lives directly. Your support enabled your Valorian colleagues to save 10 more. You worked for 16 consecutive hours without rest. You treated every patient, regardless of species, with equal skill and care. And perhaps most importantly, you demonstrated that understanding and compassion can bridge even the deepest divides between peoples. The council head picked up a small medal from the podium in front of her. It was silver and shaped like a hand reaching out to another hand. On behalf of the Galactic Union Medical Council, I present you with the Pale Mercy Commendation. May your example inspire others to choose kindness when they could choose fear. The room erupted in sound. Every species had its own way of showing approval. Clicking, humming, stomping, whistling. The noise was overwhelming. Taeho felt tears forming in his eyes, but he held them back. He walked forward and accepted the medal. The council head pressed it into his palm and held his hand for a moment. The young one, Drell, told me something, she said quietly, so only Taeho could hear. He said you knew what fear looked like because you had felt it yourself. Is that true? Taeho thought of his childhood, of his father, of his sister, of all the fear and pain that had shaped him into the person he was today. Yes, he said. It's true. The council head nodded. Then you have turned your suffering into a gift for others. That is the mark of a true healer. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Delegates from dozens of species wanted to meet the human medic. They wanted to shake his hand, ask him questions, thank him for what he had done. It was overwhelming, but Taeho was looking for someone specific. He found Drell standing near the windows, looking out at the stars. The young Valorian had grown in the past 3 months. He stood taller now, more confident. The fear that had colored his skin gray on the crashed ship was gone. Congratulations, Drell said when Taeho approached. You deserve this. You deserve it too, Taeho replied. You stood up for me when it mattered. You and the others. I won't forget that. Drell shook his head. We only did what was right. You showed us what that looked like. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the stars. What happens now? Drell asked. Will you go back to Earth? Taeho had been thinking about that question for weeks. He had spent 15 years in space, helping strangers, saving lives. He had told himself he was doing it for others. But part of him knew the truth. He had been running from his past, running from the memories, running from the planet where he had learned what fear really meant. No, he said slowly. I don't think I'm ready to go back. Not yet. Then what will you do? Taeho looked at the young medic. I heard the Union Medical Corps is looking for instructors, people to train the next generation of medics. They want someone with experience working across species. Drell's eyes widened. You're going to stay? In Union space? If they'll have me. A huge smile spread across Drell's face. I would like that very much. Movement near the door caught Taeho's attention. He looked over and felt his heart stop. A human woman was standing there. She had long black hair and eyes that looked exactly like his own. She was wearing civilian clothes and looking around the room nervously, as if she wasn't sure she belonged. Excuse me, Taeho whispered to Drell. Then he walked across the room. The woman saw him coming. Her face changed. Tears started falling from her eyes. She covered her mouth with both hands. Su-min, Taeho said. His sister crashed into him. She wrapped her arms around him and held on like she would never let go. Her body shook with sobs. 3 years, she said into his chest. 3 years without seeing you. Then I saw the video. I saw you kneeling in front of those aliens with your hands out. And I knew. I knew you were still the same boy who stood in front of me when we were children. Taeho held his sister tight. The tears he had been holding back finally fell. I'm sorry I left, he whispered. I'm sorry, I ran away. You didn't run away, Su-min said. She pulled back and looked at his face. You ran toward something. Toward being the person you wanted to be. She smiled through her tears. I'm so proud of you. From across the room, Drell watched the reunion. Aura appeared beside him. Is that his family? Aura asked. His sister, Drell replied. He mentioned her during the crisis. Said he learned what fear looked like from protecting her when they were young. Aura watched the two humans holding each other. So his kindness came from pain, she said softly. He turned his wounds into wisdom. Is that not what all healers do? Drell asked. Aura thought about it. Then she smiled. Yes, she said. I suppose it is. The reception continued late into the night. Representatives from 47 species talked, laughed, and shared stories. Old prejudices began to crack. New understandings began to form. And in the middle of it all, a human medic stood with his sister, finally at peace. He had spent his whole life learning to recognize fear, learning to answer it with patience, learning to choose kindness when violence would have been easier. Now the galaxy was watching. And maybe, just maybe, it was ready to learn those lessons too.